Choosing the right gear at the correct moment is vitally important to keeping your rhythm nice, smooth and even.
So here's GCN's guide on how to improve your gear selection.
A large part of selecting the right gear is choosing a smooth, even cadence. And ideally you should look to pedal at around 70 to 100 revolutions a minute.
And in general, the more power that you're putting out, the higher the most comfortable cadence will be. But there are some exceptions. For example, if you're riding along flat road with a tailwind, or if you're cruising along in a bunch in either a race or a sportive. There are, however, some occasions where you might find a lower cadence is more comfortable. Many people, myself and Matt included, find it a little bit easier just to drop down a couple of gears harder before we get out of the saddle.
It's easier to ride out the saddle in a higher gear, and it also guards against this. Dropping back into the rider behind, as you can lean on the pedals using a bit more force to keep the forward momentum going far better.
If you live in a particularly hilly area, you might find that you have to alter the gear ratios that came as standard on your bike in order to maintain the correct cadence. Check the front chain rings for a 34 or 36 inner ring and the cassette at the back for a 28 large sprocket. These ratios will allow a seasoned rider to climb almost anything, but there's certainly no shame in smaller gears if you need them. Only the very best and most expensive gears can handle changing under load, and even then it's not a great idea. However, it can be unavoidable in real-world racing, where sometimes you're going to have to shift in an emergency. There is a trick though that enables you to do it when you have to. Put in a couple of strong pedal strokes and accelerate just very slightly, even if you're on a steep climb. This is really important. It allows you to then ease the pressure from the pedals whilst you quickly shift gears. It might be that your acceleration didn't give you enough time to change, and if that's the case, you're going to be slowing down while you keep the pressure off. Of course, the best way to avoid changing gear under pressure is to anticipate what's ahead. You should always be scanning ahead of you for various reasons, and gear changing is another thing to consider.
On the approach to a steep hairpin bend, it's vitally important you get the gear selection early and don't get caught in a large gear on the apex of the corner. Pedaling a high cadence around a hairpin bend lets you keep on top of the gear, nice and smooth.
Sharp corners downhill are another common situation where you can find yourself overgeared on the exit. Try to get into the habit of changing into an easier gear before you start braking for the corner. Just shift a few cogs up at the back so that when you kick out of the corner, you can accelerate much more effectively. A final common situation where you can easily find yourself overgeared is accelerating away from a road junction. There are occasions where anticipating stopping can't be done, so if that's the case, consider changing gear while stationary. To do this, apply the front brake and rock the bike forward, lifting the back wheel off the ground. Making use of your clipless pedals, use one foot to turn the cranks and change into an appropriate gear. You could end up doing this in such a slick way that it almost looks like you did it on purpose.
There's no way of telling what gear should be used in a given situation, as it depends on a rider's personal ability. But if you can keep your cadence in this region, you know you are doing okay. For most riders, a